What's that?
Take that to 26.
Yeah.
We don't have planning and zoning because we went to every 3 months, right?
Correct. Unless something special comes up. You ready to go?
I am.
Call this meeting to order for the Hand Commission regular meeting.
When you're considering the consent agenda, I'd also like to add 2 bills that came after we processed bills this morning. One is for the Hain County Memorial Hospital. This is rent on the house we use for community health, $618. The second one is subscription for the GIS software called Versary, ESRI. That's $440. The rest of the consent agenda concludes the payroll, the registrars, financial report, the library board, building permits, and then we'll be approving the minutes of the July 6th and June 6th meetings, as well as the claims and payments requests.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none.
There are 2 plats for you to consider. They're both over there. Luke, you'll need the signatures on all of those, either now or later. The first one is Mike Clements. It's the Clements edition. The second one is Dakota Diamond, which is Clayton Keck. The Shady plat wasn't ready for this meeting, so that can be removed, crossed out, ignored.
Is everything in order on those 2?
I haven't heard any complaints from anybody in the process.
I'll let it go.
Move we approve them.
Do one at a time, I think.
What'd you say?
One at a time, I think.
Are you
Which
going
ones?
to move to approve each of them simultaneously?
Can we?
I'm fine with it. I'll just put your name down twice.
Okay.
About efficiency here.
Second.
I'll second. Yeah, you're gonna second twice?
Sure.
Just a second.
So you're working on 2 motions, each of them sponsored by the same 2 people.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motions.
Wouldn't it properly be aye?
It would be.
Aye.
Everybody say aye, aye.
Aye.
Okay, the next item is your open letter, which relates to eminent domain. I think Jim probably would be the best person to explain this. Right?
That's funny. About Jim.
The Jims can explain it better than I can.
The PUC said that they would be most interested in hearing what local government's views are concerning the eminent domain. And so, with that in mind, the 2 gyms got together and each separately wrote a letter that would express our views. And they were remarkably similar. And then we got together and married the 2 documents and came up with those 4 paragraphs. It's basically a boil down of what this gym could come up with and this gym could come up with. You'll note that it would not be an action that we're asking anybody to take. You would agree to sign by your name there. That could be interpreted as an action or a resolution of the Board of County Commissioners. That isn't what it is. It is each individual who happens to be a commissioner expressing their view, if in fact that is your view. If it is not your view, don't sign it. That's all there is to it. It doesn't need a majority, it doesn't need a minority, it doesn't need anything but people who agree with the sentiments expressed therein.
It basically covers 5 individual voices.
As individuals
Yes.
who happen to be commissioners. We're not bound to do anything or not do anything but what appears in front of you. You will note that there's a minimal amount of punctuation present in the document. And that's for the reason that I think we both believe that if you allow the reader to punctuate, they learn more faster. especially if it's a short document. We could have said, we, comma, the undersigned members of the Hancock County Commissioners, comma, believe in, comma. We thought brevity would enhance the chances that they would actually read it. Right?
I would agree. They've got to be getting so much correspondence on this topic that
The recipients of this letter would be, in addition to the PUC, the counties that the project is designed to impact.
and
So they would know our view too.
So the intent would be to submit this to the PUC, that's why you're.
PUC, I thought the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and the other counties that are affected, the same as those other counties that have signed these kind of statements, have included our county in
There's a
that.
bunch of them that have been, so
Yeah,
you probably read them all.
Yeah, I don't know, we had some discussion, I've been thinking about it a little bit, and I don't like to see the eminent domain portion of it, I just wasn't sure about a couple things, one of them being naming the pipeline specifically, but I don't know, if that's what the intent was, is to give it to the PUC for that, but I was kind of thinking originally we were gonna be more of a generalized, just against eminent domain for private growth,
private gain or whatever.
more so than naming out
We
the
didn't,
pipeline itself.
we didn't name any particular pipe.
They just-
Carbon capture pipeline, pretty much.
well, the-
There are several of them.
Both of them, they're in South Dakota, Navigator and Summit, and they both suggested they intended to use eminent domain.
From the get-go.
From my perspective, I just don't, basically like we stated in the letter, I don't think that was the original intent of eminent domain. Not that they, and I'm not against these pipelines. If these people all sign on and want to put that pipeline across their property, I've got no problem with that. But I'm concerned about the future, the precedents that this is going to set, that moving forward are, like I've stated so many times since this has started, if they're allowed to use eminent domain here, where then do we draw the line in the sand as to what the limits of eminent domain are? Because I just don't feel like this is what eminent domain was intended to be. Government used roads,
Dams, bridges.
access, utilities that anybody and everybody can hook up to. I don't know, I thought we stated it pretty clearly that this is a private company, and even if they had paid a fee for each ton of carbon that they pump across each half mile, if there had been some kind of something given back to the landowners, I think it would make eminent domain a little bit more, in my opinion, a little bit more acceptable. But the fact that they are going to take a perpetual easement by force, my gut feeling is this isn't right and it's not a good precedent to set, so.
Slippery slope.
Sure.
Has there been, or does anybody know what the arguments are gonna be in favor of using an eminent domain in this particular case? I mean, what they're gonna come as a precedent on?
There are some cases around the country, as I understand it, where they have actually condemned vast rows of houses in marginal areas of larger cities. And they have used eminent domain to condemn all those houses, demolish all those houses, and then build low-income housing complexes on that land. And they call that a public purpose. And courts in some places have bought that argument. Actually, there's no end to what you couldn't say is a public purpose. I mean, if they decide that they don't like the SUV you drive because it gets rotten mileage, are they gonna tell you that they're going to seize your SUV by eminent domain, sticking behind the wheel of Chevrolet tracks? Where does it end?
Yeah, I was looking, I didn't find anything because I wondered if eminent domain was used in any other green, say, green energy project, like a windmill, farm or solar. So I couldn't find anything on those same lines, so I was just curious.
Windmill farms,
The,
solar farms are around the corner.
the precedent that they're following with this use of eminent domain was determined in that Keller versus New London,
Kilo,
or
kilo.
Kelo versus New London, or New London versus Kelo, whichever that was, that the Supreme Court upheld that the city of New London had the authority to take this person's property, and that, I did a lot of reading on that one. And this is following the same footsteps of that really controversial Supreme Court decision. And one of the Supreme Court justices made a statement after that. He said, this is a terrible, he said, this decision was wrong, and it's going to set a terrible precedence. And it most certainly has. I just, so much of what I read in that decision on that is exactly what's being applied here. And I don't know. I personally, like I said, I'm not for or against this pipeline. I've stated so many times, I'm certainly not a climate scientist. I don't know if this thing is necessary or beneficial, but I've stated I will stand up for our citizens' property rights. I think that's the respectable constitutional thing to do, in my opinion.
The Constitution of the United States says that your property cannot be condemned without you receiving proper compensation, just compensation for your loss. People have seized on that. People who are promoting the use of eminent domain, for example, in this instance, people seize on that aspect of eminent domain and attempt to use it as sugar to help, a spoonful of sugar to help the medicine go down. When it's the law, you're entitled to just compensation. And all these people will say, the defenders of this approach to the application of eminent domain will say, well, they're getting paid. That's only part of the equation. The question is whether or not it's public infrastructure, or whether or not public good is being demonstrated, whether or not public good is being shared as a result of the proposed project. I would argue that you can't argue that there's a public good that has been demonstrated. They don't even know, they do not know, by their own admission, they've stood right there and told us 3 times, they don't know the carbon footprint of the project. They don't know if there's a net carbon savings or not. So how can you demonstrate a public good?
I agree with that. They are not, I don't think they're half as concerned with sequestering carbon as they are with capturing dollars. That's been my opinion all along.
This is something that occurred to me yesterday. I think you guys know the answer to it. I should know. Who owns the commodity that is being transported in this proposed pipeline? Who actually owns it?
Yeah,
The taxpayers will end up.
Taxpayers don't own it.
The taxpayers will end up owning it when they pay for the carbon credits that are received from transporting that commodity, wouldn't they?
You're saying the taxpayers own that liquefied carbon?
I don't know, would they or wouldn't they?
It would be,
The offending agent that does all this potential damage is whose child? That's what I want to know.
it would most certainly be owned by the ethanol plant that originated. I mean, it's a byproduct, just like any other byproduct that they sell.
Okay, did they receive compensation from the company? Or did the company pay them?
They're paying the company.
Or
They're
they're
paying the company to transport it. And then they're receiving the carbon credit, I assume.
They're paying the company to transport it, but that doesn't mean they sold it, did they? Are they paying for its transportation? Are they selling it?
It's a good question.
I don't know. My other thing that I guess I'd like, it seems like it's specific to carbon capture pipelines. In the way it was written, my only thought was maybe we need to put something in there for other things if a precedent is set. I mean, not just carbon capture pipelines, but just so that if I decided I want to build a golf course on your land, I can go build one, take eminent domain. But I don't know where how you write that in there. You know what I mean?
Do you think maybe in the reader's mind that would go without saying?
I don't know. To me, it seems like we're just calling out the pipeline, personally, when I read it.
Well, I think we most certainly are, because the individuals that came and asked us to, join this coalition of counties who are speaking up against this misuse, they are fighting from having that pipeline go across their land. So I think that's exactly what we're addressing as one topic, and then when the next one comes, I guess we would have to determine our position of whether each individually determines what the eminent domain is.
I think there's a bigger picture here. And the picture is that if this goes through, my theory, and I could be all wrong on this, is if eminent domain goes through on this particular project, whether it be one landowner or four, whatever, what's to say another project comes in and says, because right now they say you have the right to negotiate. If eminent domain is going to be able to be used for private companies for profit, what stops the next one from coming in and say, this is what I'm going to pay you for the right of way, that's it? There's no negotiation. The negotiation by this being able to be used is gone away.
No, they're still entitled to compensation.
You're entitled to compensation, but the company could come in and say, just,
Yeah, you have to go to court to get it. They're forcing people into court if they don't take the bill.
I'm saying is the negotiation for people is gone. Because they're gonna come in, they can offer you just a little over whatever the compensation should be. There's no negotiating. They're gonna tell you what this is gonna be.
Absolutely.
That's what, I think that's the big picture that people aren't seeing is not only just for this carbon, for anything that comes along. You're making it real easy for people to, big business to come in and say, hey, it's green, we're gonna take your green away from you.
I've stated before, I foresee this moving into wind towers and solar panels and stuff, to where that will certainly get it if it's declared a public utility, And, this pipeline is at least underground, you don't have to look at it if there isn't positive to it, but if we don't stand up for the rights of our landowners in our county, we're really gonna have them screaming at us when it's wind towers and solar panels that some big corporation says, hey, we're gonna take it. We're sorry.
With waste dump, with some medical waste.
That's all I'm saying, is we need to add that in there somewhere.
I mean, you can't begin to name them all. It could be anything under
I
the
don't think
sun.
you need to name them, I think you just make a point, like stand is, we're against eminent domain.
Well, in this instance,
Misuse of it.
this proposed use.
I guess that is the beast that's in front of us right now, is the carbon capture.
Yeah.
But it needs to be made known that it doesn't matter who you are or what you're trying to promote. We don't want you using eminent domain to get it. If it's such a great thing, then figure out a way to work with these people that aren't going to give you an easement, which I frankly, if they don't want to give you one, they don't need to give you one. You're a company, you're a big company, figure out a way around it.
There is a carbon capture pipeline in Minnesota, and they just went around the landowners that didn't want it. They negotiated until they found a route and went around the landowners that didn't want it. My God, there's a reason they make elbows for pipes. You know?
I mean, if one of those types of entities wants to come in here and try to pull the same thing, we ought to write the same letter concerning them.
I don't have a problem with that. I get that this is what's in front of us right now.
Yeah.
But I would like it to be known that, I guess that's my feeling, I'm not, the way I just said that, made it sound like I was speaking for everyone here. Is that we're kind of, I'm against eminent domain no matter what. If a person owns this land, paid taxes on this land forever, and some of this land that they're crossing has been in these families forever, that they shouldn't have to sell you a right of way across there if they don't want to.
Well, historically, it's always been the judicial remedy answer of last resort. It's the last thing anybody would try to employ, eminent domain. That's how they got the interstates built.
Mhm.
We all know that, the dams and all that kind of stuff. They could certainly make the argument that there was a greater public good involved. There isn't. At least not that they can show. It isn't even going to be owned by the taxpayers. They don't even participate in that way. It is not public infrastructure.
And my understanding, from what I've been following what's coming out from the hearings on that Navigator project, is they've only got 30% of their easements signed. Summit, I think, is at 70% of their easements. But I don't know, I just,
Well, what we're considering here on this letter is, no one on this commission is bound to sign it. We can sign it at our leisure. So I would say we should leave the letter probably in Doug's office. And if you want to sign it, sign it. If you don't sign it. And we can send it on to the PUC with the signatures that are on.
Or those other entities that
Or,
were mentioned.
yeah, whatever entities you want to send it
I
to.
think that sounds right.
basically that suggestion only comes from these other county commissions. Have sent the letter to the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and there's 20 counties that are affected by this project. And so they sent it to the 19 other counties other than themselves, obviously. And
They were very specific about who they were dealing with.
yeah, they were.
I would like to see a lot of other counties that don't even have a pipeline or don't even have anything
Yeah.
remotely going on in their county. Sign one of these.
There are a couple of them already. One of them is Fall River County, in the Southern Hills, has their commissioners have signed and said that they feel this is a misuse of eminent domain, and then the other one is clear out west somewhere.
But I think you need to, I think more counties need to get involved with it. I guess unless they feel eminent domain is a great way to go.
Yeah.
But I would like to see more and more, not just counties affected by this project.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, it's a lot bigger issue, and this is a big issue,
Yeah,
but it's a bigger issue coming down the road,
yes,
and it's coming a lot quicker than people can think.
Yeah.
And if you don't get ahead of it now, we won't be able to get ahead of it.
yeah.
So that's my 2 cents. Let's,
Like I've stated several times, I just think it sets an awful precedence that where do you then draw the line in the sand? That's what my concern is. Okay, this one goes through, but then how big and invasive does the project have to be before you finally draw a line in the sand? I don't know, that's.
To your knowledge, that plume study that is undercover, ever been made public?
Not that I've heard of.
Do you think there would be any value in us going on record inconveniencing a lot of people.
I certainly think that it should be, people have asked for it, and they said it won't be disclosed. I don't understand that this is if this pipeline would break, it's a huge safety issue.
Of course.
And the likelihood of that, I think, is extremely low. But as I stated to a couple people, they says, do you really think that pipeline's gonna rupture in Han County? And I says, I can't possibly predict that. I said, but I know what the possibility is right now,
Yeah.
0, you know?
Hey, Jim, can I approach it, talk on the safety aspect?
Pardon?
Can I approach it, talk to you guys about the safety aspect of
About the what?
the pipeline?
Safety aspects of it.
Is that out of order, Mr. Chairman?
I guess I was getting ready to move on, but yeah, you just, well, if you can make it short.
Okay. Just some things I've been working on with Rod Dillon with the pipeline, he's the safety officer there. My concerns is our fire departments and responders are not ready to respond to one of these instances. And with the pressure of 22 to 2400 PSI coming out of those, we're a big risk, even though the chances are slimmer than we might think, but the equipment is a huge burden on our fire departments. Polo is one of them. Currently, to my understanding, they don't own an SCBA, which is a self-contained breathing apparatus, which is going to be one of the main pieces of equipment they're going to need to respond to it.
Is that an individual piece of equipment every person has to have?
And they're roughly $8,000 a piece.
Oh my gosh.
And then they're only good for 15 years. So like, just to give you an idea, Miller Fire Department has 16 of them. Every one of them is outdated. They expired in 15 years, ours are 20 years old. They're $8,000 a piece. We've applied for grants for 5 years and we've been denied. You're talking $150,000 paycheck or a check.
I believe didn't he say they would pay for them, or?
So that's where I'm going with that.
Seems like one of the reps did say something about they would help our emergency responders with the equipment they would need.
Right, so that's all word of mouth and by email, so I don't have any guarantee, but I have given them $400,000 worth of quotes for the equipment that 3 different fire departments in Han County will need to be updated.
$400,000.
$400,000, because each one of these breathing apparatuses, you have to use compressed air, you gotta have a certain compressor to do it, then we're $50,000 a piece. So Miller needs a new one, Polar would need their own, and Reheights would need one, because they'd all be responders to this pipeline if we were to have an incident with it, whether it's a leak or a rupture.
Do you
So,
think it's, time-wise, would we be premature in demanding those kinds of assurances in writing from the company at this point? Or should we wait and first see whether or not they get PUC approval? And then want to use our right-of-ways?
I would like to see it in writing, but I don't know how to do that, and if I even have the ability to say, hey, I want this in writing. They tell me they won't, they're going to do it, but they're not gonna do it until they start digging. I've heard that from other industries that have come into the county, and we haven't received any donations or anything to any of our, I wish they were all like the oil seed plant, because they donate and help us out on a regular basis, but not all of them are like that. So that's, my concern is it's word of mouth. There's no guarantee we'll get any of that, but the guarantee will be that we will not be ready if this goes through. Our responders will not be ready to handle an incident if we have it.
If they're,
My worry is that you need to be ready day one, because if it ruptures day 2, we're still not ready. We can't be, we'll start fixing things and have you ready for an incident when we get done. Well, we're behind the 8 ball already. And to be honest, and you guys probably heard this, volunteerism is not a thing anymore. We just don't have a lot of people banging at the door to come be on the fire department, BAMS, to help in those instances. And the demand with this stuff coming in, the training that goes along with it, I'll tell you right now, Polo doesn't want it. I've talked to the chief, he said, we don't want the apparatus, we don't want to have to go learn how to do that stuff. We are a rural fire department, we want to put the wet stuff on the hot stuff, that's what we want to do. And there's going to be training required. Same way with the wind towers.
It's quite a bit bigger project than this one up here. So there's a lot of different things we're gonna have to take a look at.
Are we officially required to go? I mean,
To what?
if it were to explode, I mean,
We would be required to respond and do our best to.
But your response could be, this is as close as we go.
Could be, it might be, it might
Well,
not.
it would be, if you're not geared up for it, you can't go in.
So right now, the only Miller Fire Department and Heights Fire Department could respond to it because we do have equipment, even though it's outdated, needs to be updated. We could respond to it. But you're also walking in with, we do it every day now, but we're walking in with outdated equipment just because we can't afford it.
Have they sent anybody to any of these departments to talk to them?
This Rob Dillon has been around, as far as I know, he's only talked to the EMs in each county.
That's
And that's it, yeah.
I think he needs to go to these fire departments. Because I think you get an earful when you get.
Yeah.
That's why they don't go.
And I put him on the spot at our conference this year, and I'm gonna be going to the conference again with last year until this year, because I wanna put him on the spot in front of everybody and say, you promised him this stuff, I want you to follow through with it. It's, to me, it's a big burden. We already have trouble affording the equipment that we got, you know. You look at a pair of bunker gear that's required, you're looking at $3,000 a person. Miller's got 40-man department. Heights has got roughly 30, and they have 6 sets. You know, I don't know how many Pole has, but they don't have a lot of sets of bunker gear. They don't have the breathing apparatus. A bumper truck is $400,000. I mean, it just kind of gives you an idea of what things are costing.
I imagine their response is going to be, we're not going to spend a dime on this until we're approved. Otherwise, we could be throwing it down the toilet.
And I understand that too, but my only concern is if there's a way to get it in writing, and I don't know if it's a push.
no different than they're paying someone $400,000 for an easement, but they don't know they're gonna do it.
They don't.
I mean, honestly.
I don't know where we go from here. I don't know if it's something I can push for or if it's not.
I would certainly think that it could be part of a verbal negotiation. If we're gonna sign an easement for them to cross and use our right of ways, then
I think that.
There you go.
Plume study, both.
That's probably the way to go about it.
And
Anytime.
the biggest thing is that if the pipeline comes through, it's not just getting them geared up for day one. It's down the road, years down the road. This, you said it yourself, this equipment wears out or runs its livelihood. Who's gonna keep putting that back, putting that back? So I guarantee these fire departments can't afford it. You can gear me up once, but I can't afford to keep myself geared.
Are these perpetual easements? They don't have a 50-year life or.
I think they're.
That was the way they just explained that. I never read one.
How do you finance what we're talking about? You got perpetual easements, good till the year 5010.
And one sign perpetually is that they will keep these fire departments well equipped.
Yeah, and they declare bankruptcy and they aren't going to keep well equipped.
I would think that the request for their plume study of how this stuff acts and travels, depending on weather and wind and temperature and whatever else is involved. I think that should be part of the training for these emergency responders.
Yes.
Is how these, if there is an
But there's-
incident,
okay.
how does that plume act?
My question goes back to the PUC. Does the PUC look into any of this? Or is it just a rubber stamp?
No,
Okay, move
the
on.
PUC made it very clear in Aberdeen, they want county's input. They want to know what we think. And they will
I
consider
think they
what our
are.
concerns are.
I guess it wasn't, I didn't understand the severity of it. I mean, I knew it wasn't good if it exploded or leaked. But, I mean, you're putting it, I mean, the equipment that you're talking about between all these fire departments, it's gonna break somebody, and it's probably gonna end up being the county that's gonna have to foot the bill in order to pay it. Well, we haven't got that kind of money.
You got 4 fire departments.
Yeah, we don't have that kind of money.
Arlen, you cannot, as I understand, you cannot operate an internal combustion engine in the area of.
Yeah, it displaces oxygen.
So you'd have to have electrified emergency equipment?
Possibly. And it by foot.
Do they even make it?
There are some, but you're talking $1 million price tag.
Yeah,
And they're in the infancy stage, like only a few have them as test units. And they're in your larger cities like Chicago, and a lot of them around California that are dealing with it right now.
I'm assuming if there would be one, it was just like you said, you would be walking in.
Right, and my concern is it may not be a rupture, it might be a leak, and it displaces, and we got a lot of low areas where you get a farmer out there that's out there cutting some hay, and he drives in there, his tractor quits, the next thing you know, he quits.
Yeah.
You know, and it might dissipate him to get up and get out of there, but if we go to respond, we're gonna have to gear up in that gear to get in there and be able to breathe. So, it's,
Just as a note, that incident where the carbon turbine ruptured in Mississippi, they said it put 46 people in the hospital. And out of curiosity, I thought, well, I wonder what the population of this town is that ended up with 46 people in the hospital. Population of the town, I think, is 38. So, the population of the town plus some people that were driving by ended up hospitalized, and so
now you're seeing-
everything stops wherever that plane.
some of them are having long-term issues outside of that, medical issues. Like, yeah, they didn't die, but they were without air for a certain amount of time, and they're having medical issues related to that.
Well, I think we need to move on.
That's all very interesting.
I guess why don't you just stay there, we're just gonna move right to you. I guess what I'm gonna do on this, what I think we should do with this letter is leave it in Doug's office.
Yeah.
If we wanna sign it, sign it, if we don't, it's fine.
Sounds great.
All right, let's see here. What do you have there? Okay, so I'm looking to surplus some items. The new state system has gone in today, it is up and running, and by the end of the day, everything should be good to go. Over the last 5 years, I've been able to secure almost $100,000 worth of radios. All those radios are installed across the county, all the fire departments, EMS, and law enforcement have theirs in, programmed and ready to roll. Now, some of these old radios that are no good to us, but still have some value across different venues across the nation maybe. I'm looking to surplus these items and get them out on eBay or something like that, get them sold, bring back some, whatever we can get out of them back to the county.
Any estimate on what we might be able to get out of
So
all that?
out of it, it's kind of an up and down market, just trying to find a niche. Some of the handhelds, like the 6 or the 15 EF Johnsons, 51 SLs, I know I can get $75 a piece out of them. That's about all I know right now that I can get.
Why would anybody want these out?
One of the companies here in the state is selling them back to the Civil Air Patrol, and they're using them for their search and rescue and stuff.
They can still be used for business band, ham radio, variety of things. They just are no good to our public safety system. State.
But there's no reason for us to have them.
I mean, like the highway department wouldn't use them or anything like that? No.
They have, we're on a different system than what some of this stuff is now.
Okay.
So the reason we had them is for the digital capabilities of them.
So you want us to declare, do we have to do this line by line to declare them surplus?
Well, the funny thing is that initially, the grant specified that they were ours to use, that they were subject to recall. So we didn't put them on our inventory. But Arlen and I think for the sake of transparency, that you should know that this is what we intend to do with it. Our alternative is to destroy it. But we think we can convert these into something that can be used for more emergency management equipment. And then also serve people who want to use this equipment for those other purposes.
Was legislative audit examine the sale of these things and discover they weren't on our
They could, but they would certainly understand that when other departments gave them to Ireland to try and convert into something useful, that we're fulfilling that obligation.
we think it's worthwhile to spend the time to sell them, that we think we'll get.
Yeah, I think so.
We'll get our lot.
I think Garland's estimate is pretty good on the mobile radios. I think the handhelds, we can probably shoot for $100 a piece on those.
And the goal would be to reinvest that into some more communication equipment, whether it's radios or cell phone booster type equipment.
Would we need to put it into a separate line item or that's something?
No, when it gets sold, it goes automatically back into the emergency management fund.
Okay.
So we just need a
So-
motion to
So
authorize.
you need do you need a motion line by line, or do you need a motion?
Just to approve the request that's in this report.
I'm so moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passed.
Any questions on that part? Anything that we just talked about? Last thing that's not on the agenda, but I just want to update you on the disaster 4819 incident we're on it. We have 6 or 7 townships that have applied for funds, and we're working through all the SAM number stuff now. And I do think one township will drop out because they didn't quite meet the threshold of the $3,800, so they'll just end up fixing their own. But they're aware of that, so. But the rest of them are working through the process, and we'll be starting to repair and starting to claim.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
That's yours.
Yeah. Jeff and I worked together on this. This is a resolution to impose a temporary speed limit on the road that runs from Highway 45 to 369th Avenue, which is the haul road for the wind tower project. And so if you pass a resolution, it would give instructions for signs to be erected, and then it could be enforced by law enforcement.
Are there a lot of people traveling over 40 there, do you think? Is that,
You know, a few. The head truck driving guy down there called me, he used to be highway patrolman, and he highly suggested that we put a speed limit on that road. Just his opinion.
Well, if he's telling you to put it on, that's.
I think it's a good idea,
Is it signed at 55?
yes.
I would move that we approve resolution 2023-13.
I would second.
And we gotta do this by roll call, right?
Aye.
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 Excuse me, just for clarity, what would the speed limit be so the people that are on the TV can hear you? What would the speed limit be?
40.
40 miles per hour.
Or, yeah,
40?
40.
yes.
I thought you-
Yep, that's what I.
That's in your folder.
Yep.
The next resolution is at the request of DOT, the engineer, and the highway department. This is the annual update of the 5-year plan. From my understanding of Brad's desire, he went through this, right?
We did, we went through it together.
Yep, it basically takes what was there and advances everything a year. I opened the wrong one. Number 15.
I will move to approve resolution 2023-15.
Second.
It's this one. Not that
Right.
Yeah, 15 is actually it's to amend the 5-year plan, but it adds or removes the structures as listed on there. So,
What happened to 14?
Further down, I don't know what it is.
I think 14 was originally going to be something we talked about last month. It's skipped.
Poor 14.
It's a good question.
Okay, we're on resolution 2023-15, right?
Yep.
Aye.
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 This is the CDO one,
Okay. Basically, what we're asking on that one, the county helped pay for part of the classroom time for the, and then we would set up some kind of a payment plan in the end, they could pay us back. It's their license, but
How much do you, how do you plan on making it happen? And, I mean, like, Jeff was able to get some certification of some sort to help with part of it? Right?
Yeah, that was before they changed all the rules. They didn't use.
So he can't do anything basically now other than help him teach him maybe a little bit, but realistically.
Right, it's really required that he has to train the driving part of the Jeff does, and then the theory is a classroom. You got set, I think, 3 days in a classroom, and that's where the expensive part comes in, and most of our new guys can't afford that. So we're trying to help pay that for them, and then set up a payment plan so that they can pay the county back.
Who do they come up with the plan with? You individually? Are you the one that works?
Or probably, yes.
Is it a
I mean, as
negotiation?
far as the repayment,
Yeah,
we do it through wage assignment.
I know how you,
We would negotiate a reasonable amount, we could extract from the
My biggest question I got on this whole thing is, you gotta start with how much is this gonna cost these people?
All right, now, they're thinking the theory class is around $600, below, like $600 or $700.
Okay.
Now. Why don't we just, I'm sorry, I'm just ignorant, I know this isn't my department, but like.
Well, primarily because if we train them and they leave.
Okay, we do the same thing for the sheriff's department. We send them out to state and it costs us a whole lot more money than that. And we haven't come up with a plan to recoup. We talked about it, every time we come up with a plan, the sheriff says, well, then nobody's gonna apply.
yeah.
We're doing the same thing here. We're requiring them to have a CDL. We're having a hard time finding people to work. Am I right or wrong?
Correct, yeah, it's hard.
So, okay, we're gonna hire them, and the minute we hire them, we're gonna, and they don't have a CDL, which more likely they won't. We're gonna hire them, and right away, we're gonna start taking money away from them, so they can get their CDL, so they can stay working for us.
Not right away.
I don't care when we take it. It doesn't make any sense. You're taking wages away from a person that wants to work. And yes, I know, they can come work for us for 6 months, get the CDL and leave. We're out. When we do it in the sheriff's department, it has happened to us before, time and time again. I'm just saying, we gotta find out what the total dollars is gonna be, what it's gonna cost, and go from there. And if they stay a certain number of years, they get that money back. If you wanna garnish their wages, if they stay so many years, they should get their money back. It shouldn't cost the person money to go to work.
If they've worked for 6 months and we've invested this money and they still don't have or 12 months and they still don't have a CDL, I would hope that 12 months of employment, that we at least got that $600 worth out of it in benefit to the county, and if we didn't, they should probably.
Well, the whole deal is, from what I like the idea that they gotta start right away, that the steps they gotta go through. What got me is when we're gonna garnish their wages, that's the part that gets me.
Well, we require the CDL, but you've got to pay for it.
But if you're a lawyer, you're required for hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. That's a career choice that these people are making.
Well, what I'm saying is that gonna hinder you getting some?
Yeah,
I think it'll help.
Why wasn't my student debt paid?
Why isn't my student debt being paid off?
I do know a couple of counties
Get a
that
degree.
will not hire without a CDL, and they've been waiting for over 2 years, and nobody's coming to do it.
So maybe, I guess I don't know what, my biggest concern is, because I was under the impression it cost about $4,000 for the
Then we
CDL.
started at that, yes.
Because if it was $4,000 and I figured, okay, you decide, yeah, now I'm just shooting figures out there, because none of this is figured into this resolution, that you're gonna garnish their wages. And, okay, we're gonna say in a year, they gotta have it paid back. Well, if it's paid back in a year, it's $333.33 a month that's gonna come out of their paycheck.
At that dollar amount, yeah,
At that dollar amount.
yeah.
Because that was the dollar amount I heard.
Sure.
Now we're talking 600. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it's pretty hard to go, for somebody to go to work and the first day they come to work. And not the first day, it's good, but somewhere down the line, you know, I don't have a CDL, I'm gonna have to get it.
Mhm.
And the outfit I'm working for is gonna take money out of my paycheck,
Yeah.
so I can have it.
Once you acquire the CDL, you get a $2 bump in wages, and that's when we would actually set up a back plan. We could hold part of that rate, or however we would set it up. But
I think at that point, if he gets his CDL and they're here an X amount of years, and I don't care what the dollar amount ends up being,
mhm.
after a certain amount of years, they start getting that money back that they paid for. Because they paid for it out of their wages working for us, and we should make that right with them.
Can we even require somebody to pay for service as a requirement or as a condition of employment? Is that even,
Yes,
we can?
yeah. My question is along those lines, can we say you will be reimbursed in the fashion you're talking about if you give us 5 years?
I mean, I have heard of it, like, as far as educational expenses, I mean, I think that's fairly common.
Okay,
I got somebody in the back wants to say something real bad.
So you guys have me go to school, and I'm required from the Department of Revenue to have continued education. I started here, I had to go take an exam, I had to go to school within the first year for an entire week. I got a room for $600, and the class that week cost me $350. Then I have to do continued education for years 2 through 6. 3 of those years, I have to go to school for another week with another class for $350. You get where I'm going with this? I'm not gonna pay for that to work for you. I'm not.
Well, we would pay.
Right,
Yeah.
so that's kind of what I'm saying, so you're requiring these guys to be able to drive your equipment and have a CDL driver's license,
That's
but
the
you're
point he's
making them paying for it. Is- I understand that they can go somewhere else if they get that CDL.
Same
So can
thing.
you, so can you, so
Let's
can you.
go with that.
Yeah, it's a chance we're taking on every employee that we have in the county, that we send to get further education. I would hope if you, I guess, I would look at it this, to me, has it been a problem in the past? Somebody gets CDL equipment.
No, it's fairly new. It never used to cost that much money.
Well, yeah, that's true, but I just,
I have no problem with all the bullet points, other than the last sentence. And I don't know what I think, if something else should be done, but I feel like, quite honestly, the first bullet points is all good, you know, that you have to have it within 12 months. But if you haven't done it within 12 months, you're not trying real hard, probably.
well, I'd say it's about, you know, it's time for you to be looking for someplace else. Now, circumstances come up and things happen, but I guess that's the problem I have. And then I'm one of 5, so.
I agree with you. It's an investment we're making. And we need to invest in it.
And I'd agree too, especially in the environment we are with finding good people. I mean, I think it'd be it's a benefit that we're giving them as coming to, I mean, it's like a sign-on bonus
I
or
guess I
something like that.
I have looked into that.
I do have a person maybe to talk to about it, but for you.
So if somebody comes to us with a CDL, do we
There's a $2,
Well,
bonus, but
we get $2 raise.
so in that case, then it makes sense that
If they come with a CDL,
they're getting paid for it, so if they don't, we're gonna pay for them doing it. I mean, whether or not it works out to be the same dollar amount, I guess I don't know.
It's a good way to look at it.
How was the original policy born? When started? When did it start?
there's policy for.
Actually requiring one.
There was, I believe it's a requirement for my insurance company.
I guess that's how it was, because you gotta have a CDL to run commercial
Yeah.
vehicles, and all of the county vehicles are commercial.
None of them are commercial.
What?
None of them are commercial.
Well, it comes down to air brakes to drive.
But you can be a farmer and run a truck with their.
That's okay.
Yeah, we're exempt, but I wanted to know how it started. Was it a professional attempt to professionalize drivers? Just make sure you're sorting out the good from the bad?
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
Well, there was too many people that had a license in 3 and 4 states. Now, if you're gonna be a commercial driver, you're gonna have one license in all 50 states, and it's a commercial driver.
So it's pretty much just an evolution of
Yeah,
situations.
I did talk to Ellen about, needing it, because there was questions way back, and he said from what he was reading, you better have it. So, have a CDL, our people need a CDL.
right.
How soon do you need to have this finalized, these guidelines? Because I think I might boil this all down to one line.
Yeah,
You gotta have a CDL within 12 months, period. The county will pay for your acquisition of that status. That's all we need to say. You don't have to tell somebody they gotta study, you don't have to tell them they gotta take a test, you don't have to tell them they have to.
Some of them you do though.
But I mean,
Yeah.
you can't get a CDL without.
You leave the steps in there, I don't have a problem.
Right now, he has some employees that went past that year,
But what?
that went past it. I mean, how long did it take Hayden to get it?
well, it took a while, he came back a second time, and he did finally get it. but-
Well, what if we say we got 18 months to get it? That's,
The biggest problem is it has to work around their work schedule.
yeah.
And that's a tough thing to do.
Well, I would say if they take the test within 12 months, not everybody's gonna pass that test the first time through. And that's not saying anything about a person. But if they made the attempt and then they're gonna go back through and do it again, I don't see a problem with that. I don't,
I have 2 people that have got the written part this time for the theory part of the classroom. And they're worried about how they're gonna pay for it. So, I guess if we can help them, that's fine with me. I just need something.
I think, I mean, I don't wanna have an employee doing something we require them to do and worry about how we're gonna pay for it. You wanna lose an employee, that's a real fast way to do it.
You know,
If we are gonna pay for it, would it come out of Jeff's highway department, or would we take it out of our commissioner's contingency fund?
It would come out of his budget because it's a road and bridge fund.
Would it have to come out of
Is there a
Yeah.
line item for next year for that?
Oh,
Huh?
no, it's just part of the normal operation.
Because you don't know how many you might have. You might get fully staffed and never touch this for 10 years.
Unlikely, probably, but it could be.
Unlikely, but I mean, you could go a period of time where you don't have anybody.
Right.
Everybody's got their CDL and we're good to go.
If they obtain their CDL for $600, that's considerably different than the original $4,000 that everybody was talking to begin with.
That was my biggest concern when I was reading that, because it's like, I mean, because I even heard it was more than that. Well, now we're talking serious money. How are you gonna get an employee to pay that kind of money back?
Yeah, we'll kick back from a lot of counties.
And then, like you said, there's a lot of counties flat, will not hire them unless they have a CDL. At least we're hiring and helping them get a CDL. So that we're hoping that by us helping them get a CDL, they will stick around and work for us.
Are we saying we don't want anybody long-term who does not have a CDL?
I don't think we can have anyone long-term.
We don't-
Gotta have
So
it.
somebody who wants to work in the office or wants to work as a mechanic?
The-
Are we saying all anytime
No,
highway department employees?
No, not office, but
Well, where's the
highway,
distinction?
yes.
okay, well, then that has to be in.
I mean, it just should just be anyone that the department head deems necessary, I would think.
Well, why don't we work on this for a month, fine tune it?
I don't have
As it says now, it's equipment operation.
Okay.
You know,
I mean, you don't need
But
the people in the office to have.
I guess in the short term, the guys that are wanting to
Can't we just approve?
continue on,
Yeah,
that's what he's after, I'd say we approve them to
Yeah.
continue the process, I guess,
at our
at
expense.
Kelly's expense.
I would make that motion if you haven't.
You just did.
Okay, then I'll second that motion if that was the motion.
Yeah.
Can you restate it for my benefit?
That we allow the current highway department employees that are wanting to further their advancement to getting a Class A CDL to proceed and on the county's behalf, and we'll pay for those expenses.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passed. Who's here, we're making sure we're signing the resolution.
Gotta find my pointer down.
It's a policy change, it wasn't a resolution, it's not.
What's the first one? I'll let
Yeah,
Yeah, I know.
so,
One for attack the.
yeah, there's already been discussion, we started at the auction, we were cleaning our file,
Meeting all the same.
and, so they've already been disposed of, I
Does
guess.
need a motion to approve or?
So we're talking about the,
This
Oh,
was stuff that was sold last fall,
oh, okay.
but it didn't get declared surplus prior to the sale. And then we started the process of doing it after the sale, but of course I got busy here. So we're finally to the point now where we need to formally declare it surplus.
I will make a motion to declare those items surplus.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passed.
so we do have all four, or three graders delivered now, we just got them last Friday. Working on that, getting the snow equipment off the old ones and on the new ones. So we need to start advertising to sell the three older ones,
How are you planning to advertise?
yes.
I don't know, how are you planning to advertise, like a percolate or something,
Yeah,
Miller area rubbish.
it'll be in the paper, and then we'll advertise in as many places that we can. And we'll have to choose an auction service to sell them for us. I guess we need to get them advertised, is that right, first, get them in the paper, get them advertised. And give others a chance to come in and auction it.
Can we get them on the state auction site?
You can, there is a way to do
Do they
it,
get a cut?
I would imagine.
But everybody does.
That market's still pretty strong, I assume.
Through these other outlets and through the state. Didn't we sell some before?
Yeah, we let RDO buy a purchase one, we had the crazy, sold it to them, and then the next one we sold the machinery trade. Which has gets advertised over the water, it's got a big clientele. We did quite a bit better doing it that way.
Right.
And then I see a lot of counties doing the purple way. There's the fee goes to the buyer on that. So, not a bad way, but
So you're just asking us to declare them surplus so you can
start the process.
start the process
I
of
will,
advertising.
I'll make a motion to declare those three graders surplus so they can be sold.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Who's responsible for picking them up usually? Is that kind of in the contract? Do they come get them, or do you deliver them, or?
Usually, the one that's in part of the contract, they set up their own delivery through the company.
Oh.
And we might have to be around to upload.
Right.
So do we decide to leave it to Jeff to figure out the best way to market them? Is that what we decided? Okay.
So do you want them appraised locally or do you want them appraised professionally? Or aren't you interested in sailing if they don't bring it up?
Would RDO, charge as much for appraisal? They're all gear, right?
Yeah,
Because when the salesman was here, I just listened to that recording, because I misthought. He thought he had a line on some townships that might be interested in too.
And
So
you
if
are
I were
really
to
for
phrase,
the
these are
townships
things
looking
from
for that.
formally. We can list the same thing.
I don't think they have money.
I would think an item of that size should be appraised.
I wonder if like if they would lease
Would
them.
be my opinion.
They're not leasing, rent them.
Don't you think an item the size of those, the value of those graders should be appraised formally rather than informally?
I don't know what it costs to have them some formally appraised, I guess.
it's not cheap.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Well, through this process, he had to give us a bid on what they were worth, trading it to.
If we trade them. We had the one that we kind of wanted to trade, that bad motor, but turns out they're not interested. What they would do to appraise it, call the salvage yard, see what it's worth, and that's what the appraisal would be.
Why would the appraisal serve any purpose at all if we're going to rely on the market to provide us the fair market value of the disposition? Why would we bother to appraise?
If you were gonna put a
Minimum bid.
minimum bid or, something like that, probably, but.
Statutorily, it's supposed to be appraised
Oh, it is.
After.
by 3 electors or somebody in that business to appraise.
I guess if RDO would be comfortable with it, I don't know why I wouldn't be okay with that. I would think,
Because I thought they gave us a bid on blades if we traded it. But they had a bid on the blades. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I don't know that we did that, but they would have no problem sending their tech down and giving praise. I can ask them what it costs, as I recall, it's not cheap.
No, it's not cheap. That's why I was hoping they would give us a trade, and then we could just put the trade in, that's what we.
Do we have to get a certain percentage of the appraisal that we get the appraisal because it's required by law? Or we can't sell it, it's a no sale?
If it's over $500, it's supposed to be appraised.
Okay, but
Right now, we have a policy that says 3 electors at large do the appraisal. Who's skilled enough to do that?
But are we prevented from by law, from disposing of the item of surplus if it doesn't bring a certain percentage of the appraised value?
what you're saying is if they appraise that $100 and it doesn't get there, do we have to sell it?
Can we sell it?
Can we sell it? That's what he's saying.
That's what I'm asking.
It's an absolute, yeah.
Well, if we can, then why do we need to have a price?
It's absolute,
Mercy of the
yeah.
market.
But that's on the
You just said it's
opposite, is what you're saying.
Doug just said,
What you're saying is we appraise it for $100,000 and you put it on there at which for an absolute, only brings 50, can you sell it? Because it's under what we appraised it for. That's the question.
Yes.
I think we can appraise it. Sounds to me like all we gotta do is come up with a value for we're talking for the state audit, right?
Yeah. To satisfy
To satisfy the statute. The statute doesn't say it has to be professionally appraised.
No.
It just says it has to be appraised.
Why do we have an auction on just these 3 items? It would be a 30-minute auction. and-
No. You want him to advertise this out and get it out. We don't wanna handle that auction.
Think so?
No,
Why can't we have it appraised by the 3
we can do this.
electeds and they appraise it at each item at $1? And then let the marketplace determine what their market value
You can do
is.
that.
Okay, then we don't have to pay for an appraisal, be slowed up by waiting for an appraisal. We're going to get the same dollar.
Really easy to
and
do an appraisal. Get me a couple, heavy equipment magazines, and I bet I can get you an appraisal in them 20 minutes.
Well, then let's us do it. If that's what we
It's
have.
not that tough to do.
Then we can do it.
That's
Look at past auctions and stuff like that, and kind of see what they're
You
bringing.
can see what they're bringing, and
Not much.
We don't need to spend money, any more money trying to sell it than what it's already gonna cost us.
We could do a statewide classified to let you know that, all the counties know that it's available too. That would help out. Statewide classified's like $125. And that would go to every newspaper in the state. And that would help advertising.
Not bad, yeah. But I worry about your,
Look through the optics that you've used before. and Get it out there, the wider, the more eyes you got on it,
Sure.
the better it's gonna be.
So, but it takes a bit, the way it goes, switched over and cleaned up and pictures, you know, it's a good amount of it. Guess that's all I've got.
Thanks.
Jeff, a question on one of the bills that I've signed was some supplies from the highway department. What is Maxi?
It's a additive we've been putting in the oil and most of our heavy equipment. It's a substance that's supposed to coat the metal parts of the metal part, there's metal on metal, I've been using it for a while. I don't know if it helps me, but very much. A lot of lower than the right one over this, but it's got 13,000 hours on it, so it's fun.
Have you guys ever used Mixer Go?
It's the go.
Yeah, they still make it.
I don't know. I guess I didn't
You put that in your
try it.
garden, you know it's Miracle.
They used to sell it door to door.
Haven't seen that stuff before.
Gas additive, added 30%.
did it really work? Did it really work? I'm sure not.
So,
Thanks, yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, right.
Jamie, are you looking to get a CDL? Is that what?
I'm done. She's gonna work for that.
It's just for the watching TV better.
I'm thinking about it, I think there's
You're
still.
welcome.
Yeah. I think it's
Maybe next week.
All right, the first statement on here was the levy calculation error for secondary roads in the opt-out. Essentially what I did is I miscalculated the, I want to call it a theory, but the concept of having it equal what it did before. And I ended up being short in that regard by $13,900, so the base levy for Harrison Township, the sole township in the secondary roads, was $12,301. The opt-out would generate $17,300 for a total of $29,656. That is 13 grand short of where it would be if the original opt-out had gone through. And so in discussing it with a couple of you, wanted to make sure that it was stated publicly, because there might be some people that are going, well, why didn't we get that offer? Well, we did that offer because I didn't screw it up for the others. So, any questions?
Nope.
The second item is the revised proposal from Connecting Point, and this deals with bringing users on to the county server so that their data can be backed up daily, as we back up hours. And then the purchase of that backup device. So the revised estimate is $2,675. The device itself, if you look at just the hardware, where you go?
$396, right?
Yes, it's $1,800 to come here and add 9 more users to it, which reflects 11 devices.
Is that essentially everybody in this building,
Nope.
with the exception of law enforcement?
Law
James
enforcement
Allen.
covered.
Oh, they are, okay.
So, yeah.
It doesn't include like Dave Johnson, it doesn't include Ann Price.
It says extension.
Did she sign up for it?
It says extension 1.
I thought she bailed out on it. It doesn't include the custodian.
Mhm.
Those are basically like Dave Johnson said that his entire software platform is based somewhere else, and he just accesses it, so he doesn't have any data stored locally.
Just
Will
web-based.
doesn't have anything that is injurious if somebody were to steal his computer or its contents. And then, I thought Ann said hers was all managed by SDOSU.
I should think it would be.
I know it used to be. But anyway, so is that still something that you're interested in doing?
You think it's the best?
Jamie, what do you think?
I don't think it's bad. There are people that would feel it already. We're familiar with them, connecting point. Coming from where I came from before.
Huh?
The price is not out of line. I don't think it's all right. From the meeting that I went to last week, they were talking about the Connect Fair. And some other counties do have it, and they seem to be happy with it. So
I guess I would say we do that. The only question would be, you know, if it's a big deal, would be whether or not the extension and is wanting to be on it or not, or
Well, I think it would be easy to add it on if it isn't.
like
It's
I
on there
said,
now.
it shows it's on there, so the end of the year, took it off, I guess, probably more than anything.
Do you need a motion to approve this?
That would be best.
I move to approve the connecting point solution proposal.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Opposed?
Okay, on or about or shortly thereafter, 2 PM is a budget hearing for the purpose of doing budget supplements. I have an update for you. The election budget went from having $55 in it. We just paid bills that amounted to $2,550 for publication on the opt-out election. So what I'm looking for there, and it's a fill in the blank in the resolution, so Luke can actually handwrite it in there, is a request of $3,000 for elections. And then in the abused and neglected defense fund, it's currently $1,640 over budget. This is basically when we have to hire a counsel, an attorney to represent the children. It's a very sporadic type of expense. It doesn't happen every year. So I would say that we bring it to balance and see what happens in the next 6 months.
What was that amount again?
1640 and 50 cents. Or if you want to round it up to 1700, it doesn't matter to me.
I just think it's 16,450. 50.
1640, 50. The next item is a fund transfer. This is from the general fund to the roads and bridge fund, which is an additional $300,000. But it's to cover bits and pieces of purchases that are made, and then I have to double check on the loan proceeds. Because I forgot to look that up before today. If the loan proceeds haven't been transferred, are you okay if we transfer the loan proceeds so that the check to RDO doesn't bounce? They won't bounce, it's figure of speech.
So that'll go to the general fund and the it transfer.
It's presently, when we got it from the bank, it was put in the general fund. So I would need to get it over to road and bridge to cover the check. It's not already been done. So that one would be plus the loan proceeds. I can write that up separately if you'd like.
It's not in your.
That last line, transfer and supplement, is that what you're talking about?
Did you put that in later?
So this isn't, it's not in your resolution.
Yeah, hold on. No, not the loan proceed line.
The loan proceed was on the general too.
It would be into general, into bridge, yes.
Okay. Then the next line is transfer and supplement blank rural access. Is that what we're on now?
This is not anything to do with rural access. We're not there yet.
Oh, okay.
We're just on this
Yeah, the one above it.
one, the 300,000.
Yeah.
Plus the loan proceeds if I didn't do it last month. I think I did, but I didn't look before I came in today.
So it's 300,000 plus the loan
Could
proceeds.
possibly be the loan proceeds, yes.
Well, I would say plus loan proceeds, if any.
Or just make sure the loan proceeds are transferred to.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other item is the fund transfer. This is the Rural Access Infrastructure Grant. We received the money from the state, and then it gets doled out to the townships. It's currently $74,000 over, and that's the result of buying the materials for the townships to place in the ground, culverts. Do you expect to see more invoices on that?
I have 2 10-foot culverts down there in Liberty, on Humphrey County, they haven't helped with Liberty yet, so that's pretty big.
Okay, so how about, because it is grant proceeds, so we don't have to worry about it impacting others. If we did 150.
You want 150 on that line?
Yes, because then I won't have to come back, depending on what those cost.
Any idea?
They're gonna be in 175, 80.
Promotional.
Number 2.
Promotional.
So you might wanna do
175?
Yeah,
Sure.
it's just living paper.
State
come on,
law.
180.
Yeah, but
The state.
I'm gonna go with it again.
180.
180?
I can make that work.
It's better on the sheet. So if that isn't utilized by the end of the year, we can just transfer it back.
It stays in the fund. It just never.
Just stays in there, okay.
I would move passage of resolution 2023-16 as amended.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, that's right, we were going around to.
Any other questions related to any of those items? Since Mike isn't here yet from Dice, do you care if I skip down to correspondence?
We're going to the break here.
I wanted to do something different with correspondence, because you do end up getting mail that comes to me in the meantime. So I thought, rather than have you search through different agendas, I just created a web page here, and then I broke it out by months. So if you wanted to look at a topic, you could come back. So for example, we were talking earlier about these 2 counties, Elon and Perkins, that issued letters related to carbon capture pipelines. So that's where I'll be putting correspondence. So you'll see it notated on the agenda, but this is where you go to look at it. That way it'll be there for ever and ever and ever and ever.
So it's under South Dakota counties. That's where we're going to find these things.
It's underneath your commissioner website.
Is that where you can click on?
That, the link will be, always be in the agenda.
That's my question too.
Does that make sense? Okay. I do not have anything related to executive session. I haven't heard from anybody else having an issue for executive session. So the last thing that we need to do is Dice Financial wanted to come back and talk about the request I posed to them, whether or not they could produce a different type of policy that would resemble what RISD wanted. And then I sent that request to RISD to see if they had a traditional plan, and then they sent out that letter that basically said that because Avera is, they would look very similar, if not the same, so. And then Dan Johnson, he did ask me about coming and talking to you during public comment, but he's not here, so. You have time. When you're done, take a break.
So I'm staker.
The only item left is potential executive session and Dice Financial.
There is no executive session for me. Anyone else?
I think I'll have a personnel one at the end.
I don't know. 2:30 is supposed to be.
Do we want Dice?
Pardon me?
Do we want Dice?
That, he made the appointment.
Okay.
So, yeah. What do we have to do? That's just the minutes.
Yeah, that's July.
So I sign underneath it.
Either the top or underneath it is certified instructor.
Or over here.
Don't you can do it over here, guys. Cause I'll sign over on the right hand side.
We have 3 guys.
The other side.
There they are, right there.
If that's changed.
Well,
They're just taking a break.
we're just taking a break.
No problem, he told us.
If you'd been here, we wouldn't.
What's that?
If you'd have been here, we wouldn't have.
Oh, that's right. There's only
Another 7 minutes. Okay.
Well,
Sign everything.
like they're able to be able to drive and whatever. Certified.
Oh, next one.
You just send them out on that one.
Get paid. All these guys. And sign off that, yes, we approved to take the driving part. State.
Then I sign
So,
those.
it was like a.
I don't
whole thing
think
was
so.
like, it was all.
Need a
No, those are just in case you wanted to look at them.
Okay.
Looking at the.
So, to me, it would have been awesome.
These are the ones,
Yeah, because he seemed to have reasons like that online course. He says a little bit about, it's a really good
Or
course.
one more tab over.
So,
So no classroom.
well, that's online.
okay, they were here.
I signed it.
I signed it.
Whatever he is.
We're done with these in a minute.
Here we go. This is the resolution for the speaker.
Okay.
It's signed. This is,
Budget mod.
budget mod. I didn't,
This is that theory class.
we went to 80 because I had 50. What was that first, we added some in. So I mean, I couldn't screw up 50 any better. That's what we go to 80. And then we'll see.
Perfect.
You'll get, then we'll get.
You have all the permanent markers to use on that thing.
Okay. I had, no, I just barely squeezed in here tonight.
We were waiting.
We can go.
Yeah, a little break in the heat today, huh? Yeah, there's some humidity out there. I know, that is just amazing. Everybody else is dealing with it. Yeah, absolutely. That's another small part direction.
Other than that, you're just not that.
What's that? Up there?
Other than last week.
Oh, yeah.
Done pretty good.
Yeah. Well, a few rains too, you made it.
Yeah.
Which is good, not everywhere, I know there's plenty of places that still need water.
Yeah, I've seen that. There's something, excuse me.
Yeah, that's right. This be like something, you know, everybody else gets weak, you get nothing.
I got some hard stuff.
Yeah. You really live out, you live in town.
I live right in town. I know something.
I'm sure if one direction fits a little more on this year, if they go on, it's no problem.
Yeah, okay, it's okay.
Hi, how are you guys? I'm good, thanks.
If you want to set that.
I was on the phone this morning with somebody too.
All right?
Yeah.
We got
You get to the point in my life, I'm trying to determine how bad your knees get before you have them worked out.
well,
Lord, grindy. Sometimes you gotta get up out of a chair or something, and they just give up, sit back down.
I have these problems, but it's not heredity for sure, I would guess, but I've had, oh, for the last year, I had this one scope for a torn meniscus, I'm pretty sure I have the same in this one now. I got a shot of cortisone in it here last week, but they've had x-rays and they said, yeah, at some point, there's no question you're gonna need your knees replaced, just a matter of how soon you can handle the pain.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm fine with it, so I'm not walking, but in between, sit down and get back up. It's not like Rice Krispies commercial.
Yeah.
Those, a lot of people get a lot of benefit from these injections. I've never met anything but high blood sugar right here.
Oh, yeah.
Who's steroid that's in there? They just really screws with the blood sugars. Just,
It might mind you, I just don't know it, I guess, right?
but can't do it, you can't swim to compensate for it. So I'm really high for like 2 weeks. And I don't get any benefit from the shot. I have on both shoulders. I've never had any relief from the shot.
Well, they say some people just know.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I said, this one was, hurt a lot, terrible a few weeks ago. It was really swollen, and no matter what I iced and whatever else. They pulled a bunch of fluid, got cortisone in there, the next day it was like a new knee. And we'll see how permanent it is.
People say that they get a good 6 months out of those shots.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see.
I assume I'm gonna wanna try that in mind when I finally decide to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Campaign against it because of my previous results.
Right, yeah, if it didn't do much good.
I wonder why that is, that for some people.
It seems odd, honestly, too. I mean, just how your body reacts, if they don't get it in the right spot, maybe someone, I don't know what, but.
The marker for the Mylar covers the road.
If there were other reasons that I use executive session, I was limited strictly to legal and personnel.
Was it a legal strategy
Strategies
or
and
bargaining strategy? You use it if you're bargaining. I've never seen that word applied to that circumstance. But it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, don't worry.
Oh, gosh, I lose track of time. Hold on. I was just talking to Becky.
Yeah, I suppose I can't do it.
All right.
All good? How's everybody doing today? Good. I'm Mike LeBrun and Jesse Tolsma from Dice Financial. I know we were here last meeting. Jesse, I'm going to hand the folders out. What we've done here is we put together a couple different scenarios. We're going to kind of review an agenda on the left-hand side of kind of what we want to talk about. And then we're going to go through some scenarios on if you would look at keeping the plan the same, or if you would look at doing that internal buy down, so to speak, where you buy a higher deductible and then get a lower one. So we will first just start out by just doing a review for, again, how the county's insurance is set up. Currently, there's large and small groups. As a reminder, a large group means that if you're 51 or more total employees. And what they look at for a large group is they look at claims, they look at projected claims, they look at demographics, they look at a variety of factors. So there's, so to speak, a risk factor involved. A small group is if you have less than 50 total employees, and the only thing they look at is age. I'm 46, and the next person's 22, and somebody else is 65. Everybody has a different rate. And with small groups, there is no, if you have claims going on, it doesn't matter, because if you're under the Affordable Care Act, they can't rate you differently. All they can rate by is demographic, meaning your age. Now, the county, you might say, what does all this mean for us? Currently with Avera, you guys are considered a large group. And the way they factor you in is they look at your average employee count on a monthly basis. And every year, Doug fills it out in advance of the renewal. They say how many people work in January, February, March, and when we come up with a number, it's like something like 52. It's real close to 50, 51, but you're considered a large group. So they do look at risk as a factor. When we look at Walmart, because we have a Walmart proposal here that shows he has a small group, and they look at average employee count during business days, and it becomes kind of gray. I know when Doug and I talked about it, trying to figure out, when you have law enforcement that work 7 days a week, and yet the main offices are only here 5 days a week, it's harder to come up with that number. But I know the proposal you saw last month showed somebody showing a small group, so we're like, well, let's show a small group as a factor. Now, when we look at this, and there won't be a test on it, I promise you, but I just want to show you on the Walmart small group, what they look at is you can kind of look at these two tabs here, but what they look at is they literally look at the age of every single person, and you are billed differently for every single person based on their age, because you can see there's an age chart here, and it shows you what the age of, what the rate would be for a 14-year-old, for a 15-year-old, for a 16-year-old, and it literally shows it. So this is the complicated part, because every person has a different rate, unless they're the same age by chance, in which most people are not the same age. Now, when you look at what the auditor's office and the way the county would be billed, is they would be billed in by the rate of every single person in its of covered bodies. So I'll use myself. I'm 46, my wife's 45, and they have 3 kids. There's a rate for me, there's a rate for my wife, and then they look at my 15-year-old son, his rate's a little higher than my 2 other kids, they're under 14, so they have a rate. So that's our family rate. Well, you can about imagine from a rating, from a composite standpoint, they don't really give you single and family rates like you do right now. When you're a large group of Avera, you got a single and a family rate. This front tool right on here puts in the total number of employees. So we've added the 32 total employees. That means 27 singles, 4 employee spouses, 1 employee children, and they generate a composite rate. But that's only based on these people. At open enrollment, if you got people that enroll on throughout the year when you get it, the rate that the county pays will always be based on the total bodies there. So with small group, remember, they only look at age, but it does definitely makes the billing a lot more cumbersome of how they do it. And we wanted to show this because it's different than singles, families, and employee spouses, where you get a clean bill every month of who's on. They don't care if I'm 46 and someone else is 21. They get a the rate's the rate, the composite rate. But on here, when you're small group, you're using these rate charts, and that's what you would be billed on. So that bill will always fluctuate and will always change. Now, going back to your guys' program, when we look the numbers over, we feel that the Avera plan is, when you compare apples to apples, is by far the best coverage for your employees. And what we think of from the county standpoint is we believe what you need to consider doing is you need to really have three options. And we put them on our little agenda on the side here. But the first option would be to say, do you keep the levelized rate? And that levelized rate, we put the sheet in here that would show the rate of 9.85%. It says levelized right at the top. It's on the right-hand side of the sheet here. And that would mean that everybody would pay the same rate. So the singles, boys, calls, everybody would pay the same rate, and it'd be a 9.85% level adjustment. You won't worry about buying a higher deductible and internally buying it down to a lower one, or kind of doing any kind of medical expense reimbursement or health reimbursement. It would just be going with these composite rates, and that would be keeping the exact same three plans that you have right now. Now, the pros and cons with that is the advantage is the employees are all used to it. The advantage is there's not a bunch of extra work involved. There's no running the insurance through, then rerunning it through and getting reimbursement. There's no additional risk to the county. You know what your dollar amount is. You're going to pay $918 for the single, for whatever plan a person takes. If they take family, they cover the difference, but you have a set dollar amount that you pay. That's the advantage with it. It's kind of, it's what you're used to, is what we've seen a lot of people do.
Your option one creates the least amount of disruption. I say it's what employees are familiar with, they understand how that functions, how that works, how claims are processed and everything of that nature. So it keeps things status quo in that regard to option number one.
Option number two, what we could do, kind of in essence of time, we're just trying to kind of go through everything here. What we could do is you could buy what's called to do the medical expense reimbursement, or in our case, we call it a health reimbursement, where you would buy a higher deductible. And you would buy like a $5,000 deductible, and that would be this little second little handout here. It says draft, it says levelized current plan options, and it has these things highlighted here. But what you could do is you could say, all right, the county is willing to take a little bit of, so to speak, risk, and we're going to see, are we money ahead by keeping the same two deductibles we have, or would we be better off buying a $5,000 deductible and internally giving our employees these same lower deductibles? It's still $1,000, and you could do it too. Now, it's probably simpler if you only had one option you were offering, but we've got approval that we could offer two different plan options, just like you have now, because you offer your employees three right now: two traditional copay plans and then the high deductible health savings account. But on this second alternative, what you would do is you could consider saying we want to offer the Avera $5,000 deductible, 70/30 co-insurance with $7,500 out of pocket. It really would mirror plan 2 on here, but what it would do is instead of buying a $2,000, you would buy $5,000. Now, from the employee standpoint, if they call into Avera, they're going to say, what's my deductible? They're going to say $5,000. But what we would do is we could set it up where we do what's called a health reimbursement, where they would reimburse once they get to $2,000. Then they notice sent to Doug, and for the auditor's office, they send us $3,000 or whatever. Free would be the most that they would have out of pocket, and then they would pay the member whoever hit that deductible. So if it was Mike and I had my appendix out and I had a $20,000 claim and I chose plan 1, I would have a $5,000 deductible and I would be responsible for it. But what I would do is I would get reimbursed from Avera Health Plans, or whoever we use as a third-party administrator, $3,000 of my $5,000 deductible. And it would be in the county's end, it would just be in an account. We probably would recommend a separate bank account just so to kind of keep it separate from the rest of your financial affairs. But that would be a reimbursement sent to the member. Now, you can see we're adding another level of complexity, right? Because you're buying a higher deductible, and if people don't use it, good news is you save the money because there's a lower premium involved with this one if you buy a higher deductible. Where you're at risk is how many people are gonna hit your deductibles during the year? That's the tough question. Well, Jesse and I have went back.
Yeah, so we asked for some historical data just to see how the county has run over the past few years, use the example, if we went back and said you had done this. And so historically, when we go back, it really has tracked. We've been pretty consistent in being about nine employees hitting that full deductible, that out-of-pocket number. And so statistics.
5 or 2?
9.
No, but which deductible?
So this would be their
9 would
current
hit the
one.
deductible. Are you talking about $2,000 or $5,000?
Actually, any of the deductibles. So you have the 1,000, you have the 1,500. I don't know that we track the differences on the deductibles, but on any of the 3 plans you had 3 years ago when we looked, because we kind of look for full plan years, because we don't want to just do partial years. We had nine individuals hit their deductible. Then the next year, when we looked, there was 8. This year, we're only through about half the year, because it always takes about 90 days to sometimes longer for claims to get processed through. We were already at 6. So we anticipate this year is for sure on track to hit 9 numbers again hitting the deductible. Now, good question, Jim, on which plan are they on? Well, with open enrollment, we don't really know. Everybody can jump from plan to plan, so we don't really know where they're going to be. But you still have a majority of your people on the HSA plan, and we don't recommend buying that down because we think that would be a real confusing mess, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here, because that's a little bit different plan than these copay ones. But we're having on average anywhere from 4 to 5 of those 9 are on the copay plans from a historical history. Now, we've done the math down below here, so you guys can see the numbers. If you would buy this deductible right here, this $5,000 deductible, and keep the same out-of-pocket, as a reminder, the out-of-pocket is when I pay my co-insurance, my co-pays, you don't want to buy a higher deductible than have a higher out-of-pocket, where the employees actually still pay more out-of-pocket. You're trying to make it neutral to your employees typically when we do these buy-downs. We get $2,500 co-insurance there, we want $2,500 co-insurance on this higher one, we only want to reimburse the deductible. Typically is what we would do. But if you did this one, and you bought it down to plan 1, it would save you about $20,000. Now, mind you though, is if there was 5 people that on that plan that actually went down to the $1,000 deductible, or to the 1,000, the county's at risk $4,000 per member. So right there, you would have spent $20,000 in reimbursing the deductibles. Now, we don't know how many people are going to hit it. All we can kind of do is look back, on average of where you've been. Now, if you were willing to buy it down to the $2,000 deductible, if we went down over this option 2, where you went to a $5,000, but then also went to a higher co-insurance, well, then you could save up to $22,000 a year. But remember, it's not purely saving $22,000 because we know there's going to be people hitting your deductible throughout the year.
The savings that you're calculating here, that's strictly premium
Yeah,
without any
reimbursement.
reimbursement coming out.
exactly. That's it. Now, and also, you might say, because we can have we've had Avera agree that they would internally manage it. And you might say, what's the advantage of that? The advantage of that is they see the claims, so they see it, they'll get the notice from the auditor's office and just pay the member directly. Very clean and easy to do, but they don't do it for free.
Where are they getting the $3,000?
They're not gonna get $3,000. What they're gonna get is they're gonna charge for every member that's gonna do it, they're gonna charge $6 per member, or, per employee, per month that takes it. So they don't, because there's extra work with having to manage all those claims, they would charge a little bit to do it.
So it's almost like a reinsurance?
Well, so the county's kind of internally self-insuring on it, but then Avera would be the one paying the members the money, administering the buy-down. Yeah, we call it a deductible buy-down is really what it is. You're buying a higher deductible, and you're buying it down to a lower amount to the employees. Now, if someone has a $2 million claim, as soon as the $5,000 gets, Avera's on the hook for the rest of it. What we don't know is if there's 15 people that hit their $5,000 deductible or hit their deductible, the county could be out more money. We don't know. It looks like you would probably be very similar to where you're at. I mean, you maybe would save a little bit of money, But we know right now from Avera Health Plan, it's $6 per member per month, so it's about $48. Well, what do we calculate out at, Jesse? I think it was about.
Are those dollars in this
They are not.
savings? They're not.
They are not included. We're strictly looking at premium there. So to have somebody administer this, they're gonna charge $250, and then it's gonna be $6 per member who takes it. And I say per employee now. One of the things that we think is gonna happen is you've continued over the last several years when we've offered this high deductible health plan, you've had more and more people that have left the copay plans, and they've actually went to the HSA, that third option. We've already, we've worked with your employees for 22 plus years, and, the good news, we know them, and they are comfortable calling us, and I've already talked to, and Jesse's talked to other people as well. My guess is gonna be at least a couple more going to the HSA plan this year. It just sure feels like that, but they feel like it's better for their family. Well, that's why we don't know for sure how much you're gonna, because we know there's gonna be costs, it's $6 per person that takes it, and then we know it's another $250, so I'm guessing somewhere between $500 to $1,000 would be about what it would cost for the county. But then you're also on the hook to having to reimburse those deductibles.
My question is, on the buy down, on the high deductible, the person who's insured, if, it's, you buy down a $5,000 deductible, something happens to our employee, and it's a $30,000 claim that they put in.
Yeah.
Okay, the person is on, I don't know, what are we, $2,000 deductible.
Yep.
The patient pays $2,000, but he will be on the hook for the $5,000 to get reimbursed from.
Yep.
Okay, so now there's some people don't have that kind of money.
Yep.
So now they're writing a hot check, hoping that this money comes back in the proper time.
Yeah.
I myself, having the third party and all that, it's been a good way to have a lot of confusion in the process. Insurance is tough enough the way it is, and not putting another layer of confusion in there doesn't really help.
Yeah, I mean, when we did the numbers, we thought the only fair way to look at it is look at the history of your group, to try to see how many people have and stuff, and that's why we went back 3 years on it. We'll know more, we'll know more come next March, or April. I think would be a good time to have this conversation again, and obviously, we're here. If you guys want to offer this plan, we will help administer it and help communicate it to your employees. But I'm kind of feeling like where you're at, Luke, maybe, where it might be a good one to save for a year where you have big adjustment, where you're saying, all right, we have a lot of utilization, maybe there's trend in healthcare is crazy, maybe whatever it is, costs have really jumped up. Maybe that would be a year where you're really, your back's against the wall, where it might make sense to save it for a year like that. But we can administer it. Now, we can also, if we don't want to do it, we can hire another outside TPA, a third-party administrator. But you are right. The way it would work is if someone has a claim, and I go in for my gallbladder surgery, I'm going to be on the hook for the first $5,000. Now, I will get a reimbursement if I'm on that $2,000 from the county for $3,000 back, but I'm going to have to pay it or be prepared to pay it and then get my money. Now, I'm sure we could set it up so those reimbursements could come on a relatively frequent manner, and we'll do everything to help, but it is another level to do. Now, your out of pocket is really what we're ultimately looking at, is when we look at 1 and 2, your out of pocket would be $7,500, and in option 2, the out of pocket would be $9,000 if we did the second option over here. And the only reason we put that on there is it was Walmart also, the Walmart small group has a $9,000 out of pocket. I was trying to compare, give you an option if you're really looking at the Walmart one. Walmart's a great company, and we're a great company, we're both of them. But from the numbers, they are more expensive right now. There's no other way to look at it. But on this one is the levelized. Now remember what we did is, if you remember from the last meeting, for those over here, Avera's adjustment was 9.85%. And the first two plans were actually higher. And we have another sheet that shows it where one was at 15 or 16, and then the other one was like at 7. This is showing if you have a levelized. the levelized options here. But then there's also a second option in here, and I don't wanna muddy the water too much here, but I did wanna make sure everybody has all the details, where we show the rates where if you did levelize it with a VRA, and you said, all right, what would the plans look like? We just took the adjustment where plan 1 went up 15 or 16%, plan 2 went up 15%, and then plan 3 only went up 7.2%. Then the buy down, if you did buy the higher deductible and give the lower one, you can see there's potentially more savings there to the county. But you also still have the risk. How many people are going to hit their deductibles? You know, how many people are going to be in there? You know, we don't really know that one. But you know, that's why we wanted to show both of them. We think the levelized one makes more sense because then those 8 employees that are on those two, plan 1 and plan 2, aren't going to see a big jump in theirs. And the county also, remember, pays the single rate currently on plan 1. And right now you can get by paying $9.19 versus $9.74 if you don't do the levelized option. So right there is, I don't know how much that is, but that's a decent amount of savings that the county would have by paying a little bit lower on the single, you know, based on the single. Now, we can have the insurance set up where, you know, the county can pay whatever amount you want. You just have always, for the last, ever since I've worked with you, you've always covered the single on the co-pay plan. You know, and obviously we can always raise deductibles. We can do buy the higher deductible, do the health reimbursement or the deductible buy down. Medical expense buy down, whatever you want to call it. We can run that concept on any of them. But I don't know, it's hard to know, you know, there's not significant savings, it doesn't appear from just the initial part, especially if you take the levelized approach.
So we went back to run the history like we talked about, you know, and we've been in our office, we work with over 150 companies across the state and familiar with this. And the thing to always remember too is it's not a new concept that's out there as well. And so it's not saying that it doesn't work, it just doesn't work for everyone. It's not the right fit there. And, you know, if it did work for everyone would do it. And so our goal is always, you know, to serve you guys here, to work in your best interest. And that's where we try to get historical data, say, well, what would it have looked like, you know, in the past 3 years if we had ran this? You know, and what we don't know is what next year looks like. You know, that's the one nobody has that crystal ball to say, are we going to have a healthy year? You know, do we have someone that has some things that go on or anything like that? But we want to be as well as forward thinking and keeping options available for the county as well. To be forward thinking in those items.
If you remember, we talked about large versus small. Remember, you guys are a large group under the VERA health plan, so claims do matter. You know, we know the way insurance companies have historically worked is they bring in premium dollars and then they got to pay the claims, and there's a little bit of administrative work there that costs. But if the premiums were lower and the claims are still there, typically what happens is the next year the rate increase may have to be higher. You know, and that's where, you know, use the analogy, you know, we're not paving a road where we do it this now and then 15 years from now when the road needs to be more work done, we can look at it again. It's kind of a year by year process, and, you know, we want to just make sure we have options in your back pocket so that, hey, we can, you know, for the last 5-6 years, we look back, your rates have been pretty stable. I mean, we had a 0 last year, the year before we were negative, this year was up 9.85%, but when we average all that in, it's been a fortunately pretty good ride, and that's kind of what we want to have, because we're here for the long run, and we've been here 20 some years. We're going to be here another 20 years helping you and your employees, and but the biggest thing we wanted to communicate is you know, we want to let you know we can handle any of these setups that you guys want to do. Either keep it the same. That's a pretty easy way to go if it's within your budget. Option 2, as a reminder, we could do a buy down, you know, where we buy that $5,000 and administer it with the lower one. We'll pay a little bit to do it, but it will be administered, and we'll help work with the auditor's office and make sure it's ran properly and make sure we communicate with your employees, because anything, every we do a meeting, we want to make sure we communicate it. Now, there is one more option. And we're not recommended, but we want to at least have you be aware of it, is you could do a buy down where you buy down the third option, the HSA, because remember the HSA is you have a $4,500 deductible, and then the employee pays $4,500. After that, everything else is paid for. And then the county puts a little money in the side account through the local bank, where that's where the money goes, and then if they have expenses, they take it out. But instead of buying a $4,500 HSA, you could buy a $5,000 HSA or even a higher one. The real problem with it that we see is that we'll be messy from a claim standpoint. Because if I go in for my gallbladder surgery, I'm gonna owe $4,500. So if I write my check out of I'm actually gonna owe $5,000 if I have a $5,000, if we have a $5,000 deductible or even $7,000. Even if the county reimbursed me money, if I took the money out of my HSA account, I would then have to redeposit it back into that same account, and it kind of creates a little bit of a taxation. It creates more of there's more trickiness involved. Because, with it, we typically would not recommend doing a buy down on an HSA plan. So plan 3, we would say leave where it is, but if you wanted to buy it down, we certainly could do it. We could buy a higher deductible and administer it there. Once again, Jesse and I, we've spent hours talking about this, probably hundreds of hours, over the last few months and weeks and stuff, but we would definitely not recommend doing the buy down on the HSA plan or the plan 3. If you're gonna do any kind of buy down, do it on plan 2, or on plan 1 and 2. Or renew it the same plan you have, and we can talk about it next year again and see and save it for future years. We just always want to make sure we have something to do when costs go up. If we don't have any room to raise our deductibles because we've taken them up so far, what are we going to do if costs go up? And that's the thing, you want to make sure they always have something in your back pocket.
Does the fact that we have an Avera hospital in this community impact any of these rates?
Well, other than you don't have network issues typically. You know what I mean? Because you're all in network. The Avera health plan includes all the Avera own doctors and of course the independent ones. But they aren't going to give you a better deal necessarily, and they're not giving you a worse deal. From that standpoint. Now, and Jim, I think you weren't at the last meeting, but we also went around and looked at other carriers. We had at least 2 carriers that just said we wanted to. They declined to quote the county. They declined to quote. Because they can say no when you're considered a large group. And Avera's came in as your best deal from a cost standpoint, from a deductible and out of pocket. So I think that history you've had with the Avera has helped. And we have a local hospital right here in town. I think that's positive too for you, but it doesn't necessarily give you a worse deal or a better deal.
Do you guys have a sense of where the employees are on these proposals? Have you discussed it in length amongst you?
My office, I would like to do the proposal.
What?
Because I want to do the first proposal that Mike and Jesse brought the first time, and not what they're proposing today, or what Risky proposed
The
from
work
there.
thing?
Yeah.
Our deputy is the same, my deputy is the same.
See, what about your trades, Jeff?
We're hearing the same consensus.
That's the consensus there, is that we should stay with what we have.
I think the town is like what they got.
Which that's the thing with this, is the only benefit to this health reimbursement, from what I can see, is to the county. As far as us, we're the ones taking the risk. As far as the employee goes, there's only downside for you guys, that you have another layer in this whole thing.
Doug, don't you think that that's gonna cost more work for your office if we would do
It would
what?
be.
Yeah,
Yeah, even though they tell me not, I can't see how it would.
well, just in listening to you talk today, it sounds like,
It's insurance. It's good.
Yeah. It is, we will say anytime you have more moving parts, you got more room for potential issues. And as Deb knows, and all the employees hopefully know, we'll be able to help. Sometimes to fix things, it takes a little bit of work. There's just no question. The more layers you have, the more things that can come up.
So even if we enrolled in the Avera, paid the $6 or whatever, $6 an employee, so would you still have the scenario where the employee is on the hook for that portion of the deductible before they reimburse?
Only if you bought that 5,000. Yeah, if you decided to, buy that higher deductible, but if you just kept it the way it is right now, then we'd say don't even enroll in the $6 because you don't need that reimbursement kind of.
Right, I just didn't know if you enrolled in there, if they kind of stepped in before they sent the bill out and said.
Well, in our opinion, and like Justin said, we work with many, many different employers, and we have groups that do this, but remember, there's different factors. If you were a 5-person group or a 10-person group, these numbers might be different, but because you're where you're at rating standpoint, it's a little bit different story. But, they definitely make it easier, but you still gotta wait for your check to come or cash flow it while while you're waiting, while those bills are being processed and stuff, so. We don't think there'd be much of an issue.
But your greatest risk is truthfully is at the beginning of implementation, because what you're doing is you're setting aside, that premium savings into a separate account. And where, we've seen businesses run into the issues is early claims, not having money into that side account, and now they're still responsible, and it has to come from somewhere else because that cup hasn't been filled up yet, per se.
On that line, did you say that, Mike, it would be an additional probably $250 a month in administrative costs?
It would be $250 set up, and then it would just be how many people enroll, it's $6
Okay,
per
but is that
employee.
monthly?
Yeah,
Because the numbers look like it would be a wash if it's too.
yeah, no,
Well, it's not 250, it's 250 a year.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
$6 a month.
It's $6 per head.
I thought it was a month.
yeah.
And then we're just, to be clear, if we did it on just Avera 1 and 2 and everything stayed the same, all the employees, we're just talking about 8 employees.
Yes, right now, and that's kind of where, Jesse and I feel like we might even be down to a lower number. Every year, there's been more and more employees that, come off that plan, went to the HSA, we just want to show them all their options. I think they really like having the 3 plan options.
And it is important to have all those options because
They're taking on more risk because they're raising their own deductible.
Yep.
We're not on the hook for the deductible. The employee's raising the deductible on themselves.
Yeah, we still have to set up the plan, though, obviously, there's still be the work to do that, and we're gonna work on it, and there would be some work from the auditor's office, no question about it, on setting it up, and then we would have to create what's called an SPD, a summary plan description of those, because remember, their benefits with Avera shows $5,000, so we have to create a document that shows what their deductible is, if you did $1,000, and if you did the 2, and then every year, there's typically what's called a quarterly fee that you have to file every July 31st. Where if you have a plan like this, we have to file, it's not a big deal, but it's another $3 that you pay, and I can't remember if it's per month or per employee, but we will help you guys, we'll help the office with that stuff, but there definitely is many more moving parts, there's no question about it. But we wanted to make sure, and we appreciate letting us come back in today, we just want to make sure that you guys know that we can administer a plan like this if you want. But it doesn't appear to be a slam dunk by any stretch of imagination that you'd even be money ahead. I mean, the county could be money behind depending on how the deductibles flow and stuff. We don't know. But the bigger question is next year at renewal time, you look at a bigger adjustment because you artificially had a lower deductible and you really had a higher one and the claims were the same. So I mean, there's some of those factors that you can't really put a number on. But like Jesse said, we definitely have experience and we're happy to help administer if you want to. Otherwise, what we would like to be able to do is come back again next April or whatever, and just talk about it again well in advance of your renewal if you're open to it, or even next summer. But we just feel like we're in a position because of our experience. If we have to ever implement this, the employees we think are going to like to hear from us because we can explain it to them. But there's a learning curve, and there's more moving parts. So
I'm just thinking about that buy down on the HSA. You've now included insurance, the IRS, and the third-party administrator into health insurance.
We would not recommend the HSA.
It's ridiculous.
yeah,
I mean, we love our HSA, all the money that goes in there is not taxed income. And I hope that our employees are using it because of that,
And you have many people, my only other thought too is you see many people going down to one deductible health plan instead of two, like the standard?
Yeah, you certainly could. I mean, right now you got 5 on plan 1 and 3 on plan 2. They'll let us go all the way down to 1 employee. We kind of thought, well, it doesn't cost you anything extra, and you know, it doesn't hurt to have it. So we thought, well, maybe we should just keep the second one, because you might say, well, who would benefit from it? Well, you know, the county's been paying plan 1, so if I wanted a lower cost for my family, I might decide, but yet I don't want the HSA, I might go to plan 2 because my premium's a little bit lower and I'm willing to take that risk on. So that's kind of why we've seen them to do it, but yeah, you're right on that, Greg. I mean, we could go to 1 plan, you know, our 1 copay plan. We would always recommend at
Right,
least
having one at least.
1 of each, you know, because it just makes sense. But like I said, we're positioned here to help you. We just wanted to make sure to give you kind of a straightforward analysis the best we could. And I'm in the boat with Jim. We would not recommend plan 3 option, because that's just, it's a really confusing thing when you start incorporating in tax deductible contributions into your HSA and then potentially taking money out and having to put money back in. It gets very muddled.
So your historical recent was a 9, and that hit their deductible. So is that across all plans or just?
That would be, we just went back and just looked at all 32 employees and
Whatever plan they were on.
yeah, and we just said how many people, because that open enrollment in 3, you could have them, so we think from a factory standpoint, you kind of you want to look at the whole plan as a whole. So 9 2 years ago, 8 last year, and we're on track for at least 9 this year.
25 to 30%, basically.
You know,
Out of-
yeah, you know, and those are the real numbers, you know, that's the one thing we can see, the real numbers of when you look back on them, and you know, so that's where it's certainly, you know, if we could think we could save the 25,000 and make that move, I mean, we would be telling you that, because we're advisors to you, to the county, to the employees, but by the time you take money out of that pot to pay the deductibles, I don't know that there's any money left over, or probably not a lot if there is.
Historically, most of the years you would have washed out, essentially been even, with 1 year being slightly back. So it's been about a wash, really, and just adding a layer of administration.
Depending on where they're at and what plans and stuff, we just, you know. But like you said, at any point, if you know, let's say down the road, the county said we want to try it, and you decided not, you didn't want it anymore, I mean, you know, we can always do away with it, but you kind of feel like if you're able to, if it's within budget, and we know that everybody likes it, if they're used to something, it's always easier to keep what you have, possibly keep what you have, and keep these options for the future, because as inflation goes up, it just always is nice. I love nothing more than when Doug and I are visiting and saying, all right, I got a couple new options for you, that if you need some savings, we can do. But if we jump to the highest deductible or near the top, we're kind of using the old arrows in the quiver. I'm trying to pull for ideas. You're running out of arrows, so to speak. So,
Well, thank you.
yeah. Well, we
Gives
appreciate
us
it.
something to think about.
Yeah. Well, if there's any questions, you have our cards, and like you said, definitely reach out and let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. And we really, no matter what, would want to, and we always do an annual employee meeting, so we would want to, once you make a decision, we would want to get the meeting set up with Doug and, all the employees, so that whatever option you did, we can get that done. So our open enrollments during the month of August September 1st. And that's also when your deductible starts over and all that stuff. So from a planning standpoint, we want to get in front of everybody. So thank you. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Anything else, fellas? Yeah.
Yes. Does anybody want to go to the county convention in September?
When is it again?
September 12th, 13th?
12th and 15th.
Tuesday, Wednesday? So,
I don't know. I'm still worried about tomorrow, so. That's where I am.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
The county's golf tournament is on Monday, the 11th. $50 a person registration.
Is there an agenda?
There is a draft agenda launch.
If you would.
It's on the website,
Is it?
SDACC website. Suppose. At the Rancoda.
Anybody else on the fence?
I will be going.
Okay. That's the end of the agenda, minus the executive session.
Greg, you want to?
Yeah, personnel.
Let's, set up our meeting, because I don't think we're gonna have to.
I don't think, we need nothing back on them.
Our next meeting is September 5th.
Yep.
So, I guess that, I need a motion to go into executive session.
Who did it?
Jim first. This second.
3:15?
Yes, ma'am.
Call it.
Oh.
Yeah. Every day.